All right, so give some further elements of critical thinking. And the reason, if it isn't obvious to everyone, the reason we're talking about critical thinking is that it's going to build your skills in how to evaluate your protocol as well as other people's proposals. When you read the literature, you're going to read the discussion section of the authors, and it's very important if you know whether the authors are making a convincing argument for their point of view, which is based on their data. So you want to know if their conclusions are supported by the. So when you own conclusion section, you want to be able to write conclusions based on your own data. I have found when I read manuscripts, time authors tend to have their conclusions, make conclusions that, let's just say simply, not based on the data, will be a problem. So let me continue. So an argument, when we're talking about an argument, we're not talking about two people screaming at each other. We're talking about when we produce an argument, we're actually giving a reason for a claim. A claim is a point of view, a position that you're taking. And you're taking a position and you're giving a reason for thinking that claim is true. Many times I hear people say that's not ethical or that's coercion. Okay, that's a conclusion, that's a claim, a point of view, that's a position. However, the speaker many times will not get why that's not ethical or why that's coercion. So you have thinking about not only making your claim, but also give a reasons for that claim. Now, the reason that you give could be reliable, but it is also a claim that's been made previously. So a claim that is offered as a reason for believing another claim is a premise. So what we have is conclusions and premises that supports your conclusion. This slide shows the language of arguments. We need to understand what's a premise and what is the conclusion of a sentence or a paragraph that you're listening to or you're reading. What is the position person is taking? So usually indicators that indicate that a conclusion is about to be expressed. The author could say it follows that. This should. You read that frequently in your when you read in a scientific paper. Table shows that. Thus, hence, consequently, accordingly. So my conclusion is. Now, words that often indicate a premise is about to be stated as since, for, because, like you state a claim, say because. And this is implied by, this is given by. Those are indicators that the following sentence is a reason for your conclusion. We have what's a deductive argument. An argument whose premises being true means that the conclusion must be true. And I'll go over a little more about that in just a few minutes. And then inductive argument is the more support the premises of an inductive argument provide for its conclusion, the stronger is the argument. So in other words, in an inductive argument, your premises based on the strength of your premises, and we'll go over that, based on the strength of your premises, will make conclusion more likely. But as opposed to a deductive argument, if the premises are true, then the conclusion must be true. Without it, then we have value judgment, a claim that expresses an evaluation of something, a moral value judgment, claim that expresses a moral or ethical evaluation of something. And rhetoric, language that is psychologically persuasive, but does not have extra logical force. Well, one tries to persuade not based on logic or but based on emotion. So we had an exercise about using arguments from explanations. An argument answers the, how do you know that? And hence, essentially, you're stating a position. You ask the question, how do you know that? An explanation answers the question, why is that so? This is a request for a cause. So an explanation, essentially, somebody gives you a fact, and you want to know why this is happening. So for another slide that shows the difference. So an explanation, you state a fact, and then you want to state the cause. And an argument, you state a claim that may or may not be true. Fact, it's a position that someone is taking, and now you want the evidence. Explanation and argument has the same structure. You have a conclusion, and you want to have a reason that. I gave you this sheet so a few weeks ago. So let's quickly go over this slide here. So my toe hurts because I stubbed it. Is that an explanation or an argument? Is someone stating a point of view?
It is more of an argument, I think, because the smoke can be of many causes. Not.
Well, what is the point of view here? What is the claim?
The claim is the fire.
Okay, right. The claim is the fire. It's not a fact. And the reason for thinking that claim is because there's smoke out here. Very, very good. What about the next one? The price of oil went up last week because OPEC cut back on life. Is that an explanation or an argument?
It could be both, Professor. If an expert
just one. Well, tell me, why do you think it's both?
An expert who is telling this is a fact, but if we are just talking between friends,
what is the position? What is the position?
Excuse me?
What is the claim?
Claim is the price of oil went up.
Okay. Actually, a position or a fact?
It depends who is telling that. If we are telling that at the news, it is a fact.
Okay. I mean, someone is saying the price of oil went up. You look in the newspapers, you go to the gasoline station, and the prices are higher. So that actually is a fact. And someone is giving a potential cause. Now, that may or may not be correct, but one is actually stating a cause for a fact. It's not a position that one is taking. Now, it's maybe a little confusing because this may not be true because the oil OPEC cut back on supply, but that doesn't change whether this is an argument or an nation. What about something that's similar? Cutting the interest rate will have no effect on the stock market this time around, as people have been expecting a rate cut all along. So is that a fact? I mean, is that an explanation or an argument? What's the claim?
No effect of cutting of the interest on the stock market. This is the claim.
Right. Okay, good. That's a claim. Other people, I don't want this to be a two-person show here, so other people could chime in. Why don't we show your videos? I like to see other people as well. All right, and children are allowed. Okay. But no dog.
Nice.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. So I like this to be interactive. So listen, there may be right or wrong answers, but I think people will learn if they offer what they think. And we're not giving out any grades, so people, and we're all friends, so people should feel comfortable answering these questions. Okay. Last one. You really do need a root canal because you have an acute tooth abscess. Argument or fact or explanation?
Explanation.
It's a what?
It's a fact.
What's the fact? Well, the
root canal,
right?
Explanation.
But is that what's the point of view of the author? Is the author of this sentence taking a position, making a claim? The claim that the author is
emphasizing on a fact.
What?
You really do need, it's an emphasis of a fact, like he's emphasizing a fact.
Okay, this is the fact. That's the fact, right? Right?
Yes.
But
yes.
Is someone giving an explanation for that fact?
He doesn't give an explanation, he gave a solution. I assume it is
good. A potential solution, which is a point of view.
Yes.
This is the claim. You need a root canal. Because you have an acute tooth abscess. So the person is arguing why you need a root canal. We're going to get more into this later. What's the strength of that argument? Is it a strong argument that you do need a root canal? Or is it a weak argument? What does that depend on?
Depend on the person who said that. If it is my dentist, I will trust him.
Okay, good. You're evaluating this. This is the claim, and this is the premise, right? And you're evaluating the reliability of that premise to determine whether it's strong or weak argument. And so one determine reliability is the source, like what you said. If you're saying that someone who has authority over these matters, and so you would say this is very reliable. Or you could use your own common sense. You don't have to be a dentist, but you could use your own common sense that if someone has a tooth abscess, then the solution is most likely a root canal. So you could determine the reliability of this premise based on the source or based on what do you think makes common sense. And we'll go over that in more detail today and in the coming weeks on how you evaluate the strength of an argument. Just like when you read a scientific paper, what's the strength of the author's conclusion? And the strength may be, for example, may be strong if there's a adequate sample size that's representative of the population, or you may say, oh, that's argument because small sample size, or you use a questionnaire that wasn't validated. So we do the same thing when we read scientific papers. Okay, so what is not an argument? Reports, simply to convey information, illustrations, unsupported assertions. If you, again, make a claim like this is not ethical, and you don't give any reasons, that's not an argument. That's an unsupported claim or an unsupported assertion. And then we have conditional statements such as if then, if X, then Y. It's not an argument, it's just a conditional statement. So for example, if it rains, then, I'm sorry, I didn't write this right. If it rains, then the picnic canceled. If he passes critical thinking, then he will graduate. Oh, okay. All right, so a deductive argument, I had said before, consists of when the premises are true and guarantees a true conclusion. So for example, Socrates was a man, a true premise. All men are mortal. That's a true premise. And that guarantees, by logic, that Socrates was immortal. You can see if the premises are, and they are, in this case, then it's simply not possible for the conclusion false. If you have correctly formulated a deductive argument and you accept the true premises, then you must also accept the truth of the conclusion. Whereas an inductive argument, sometimes considered bottom-up logic, is when the premises offer strong support for a conclusion, but one that is not a certainty. This is in which the premises are supposed to support the conclusion in such a way that the premises are true. It is improbable that the conclusion false, or it is very probable that the conclusion is true, but you can't say it with certainty, like in this argument, where you know for certain that Socrates was mortal. So for example, here, Socrates was Greek. That's a premise. Is that true or false?
True.
That happens to be true. It's a fact. Most Greeks eat fish. Let's say that's true too, based on common study. Cuisine in Greece is mainly fish, so most Greeks eat fish. And conclude, Socrates ate fish. Now, here, both premises are true, but do we have that conclusion 100% certainty? Well,
No.
Now, unless it says all Greeks eat fish, then we could say Socrates ate fish. But we're saying most. Even though it's a true premise, it's not true to the extent that you could say with certainty Socrates ate fish. You could say probably, likely, but you can't say certainty, because this is not saying all Greeks eat fish. So if you intend this to be a deductive argument, it's not a valid deductive argument. But if you intend this to be inductive, then it's a strong inductive argument. So, a summary of what we said so far is all arguments aim to provide support. That is, evidence or reasons for their conclusions. That's an argument. An argument consists of a conclusion and premises. As I said before, if you just state a conclusion without premises, that's an unsupported claim. Now, arguments differ greatly in the amount of support they claim to provide. Just like reading a scientific paper. Conclusions that the authors state will depend on the amount of support for those claims. Arguments try to prove their conclusions with logic. So essentially, it's what we call a logical argument, one from the other with certainty. Whereas inductive arguments just show that their conclusion is plausible given the premises. Let's have a little practice identifying premises and conclusions. So here's an example. The brakes aren't working, the engine oil, the transmission needs work, and the car is hard to start. The car has outlived its usefulness. We should get a new car. So which are premises and which claims? Is the author taking a position? What one?
I think the car is hard to start is a premise, and the engine burns oil is a fact. It is premise.
Well, the engine burns oil. Okay, that's a fact. However, what is the position that the author is taking in this whole paragraph? Is he trying to convince you that the engine burns oil? Now, it could be that in another statement, the author says, engine burns oil, and let me give you the reasons for that. Now, in this paragraph, all right, the engine burns oil, but is the author trying to prove to you that the engine is oil, or is he trying to prove something else?
No, he's trying to prove that you need to get a new car.
Good.
Getting a new.
Right. He's trying to convince you should get a new car. Now, the author is actually making another claim.
Car is outlived.
Yes, excellent. That's another claim. And all the brakes aren't working. The engine burns oil, meaning it burns more oil than what it should. The transmission needs work. The car is hard to start. You should get a new car. Or the car has lived its usefulness. And those are claims. And the other statements are premises. Okay, let's have a few more examples. I think you could read this. What about the first one? Science is based on experiment, on a willingness to challenge all dogma, on an openness to see the universe as it really is. Accordingly, science sometimes requires courage, at the very least, the courage to question conventional wisdom. So we have two sentences, which is the claim and which is the premise. What is the point of view of the author? What position is the author taking?
The claim, I think, is that we need the courage to question rational wisdom.
Yes, it's the claim, and this is the premise. Well, you need courage because you want to. Science involves a willingness to challenge all dogma. Be open to the be able to see the universe as it really is. Because this is the scientific method. Sometimes, especially to challenge all dogma, that requires courage. Science requires courage. Okay. So let's. What about this? Yeah, there's no prospect of world government just as well, since it probably would be a horrible government in many ways. So what's the claim?
Claim is there is no prospect of world government.
Okay, right, excellent. And here, this is a premise in a sense. It would probably be a horrible government in many ways. So what's the strength of that argument? Or what's the strength of this premise?
It is an assertion, not an argument.
Well, it's actually, I mean, all premises now, but, and it's an assertion, but are you saying, using the word assertion, meaning that it's not, when you say assertion?
Yes. It is not an argument.
Right, okay, good. Why do you say that? Why is it not reliable? Based on what?
This is a personal statement. It's a position, a personal position.
Okay, it's a personal statement, but personal statements could be depending on the source, right? You said the dentist made a statement, personal statement, but it's a statement from a good source of authority. Okay, so this is a personal statement. Who's making the statement? To take a cue from what you said before, or common sense. Well, it would probably be a government in many ways. Well, we don't know many ways, but if the author gave what these many ways were, then the author would be producing a stronger argument. So again, this is how you recognize the strength of arguments. So let's see, let me check. Oh, okay. All right. So I think, well, let me any questions about identifying premises and conclusions? So when you read a paper, you need to know what the author is concluding, and then more importantly, identify the premises and identify the strength of those premises. Now, in a scientific paper, strength of the author's conclusion will be based on the data, on the strength of the data. And again, as I said before, the strength of the data may depend on adequate sample size, representative of the population, and one cue to and the strength of the conclusion is you look at the author's limitation section and see what's the limitation. And in that limitation section, the author should try to give an opinion on how those limitations are affecting the strength of the conclusion of that experiment. Oftentimes, the author simply say, well, we need to do follow-up experiments, which is fine, but one should be able to evaluate the limitations of their conclusions. So this is why we're all understanding critical thinking. Okay, let me want to bring up another PowerPoint. Okay, analyzing arguments, which we've been doing in the last 20 minutes as well, but let's go deeper, even deeper into analyzing arguments. One way to practice analyzing arguments is to see if all the premises are there. Well, just like in that previous example, when the author, it would probably be a argument in many ways. And we said, well, the author didn't branch out and tell you what those many were. So they were seeing premises. So here's a similar case. You can't check books from the library without an ID. Bill won't be able to check out any books. Well, the claim is what? Bill won't be able to check out any books. And one, you can't check out books from the library without an ID. So in the chat box, I want to make sure you're all alive. What's an unstated premise? Is this conclusion supported solely by this premise? Or how could you make that argument stronger by filling in a missing premise? All right, Bill does not have an ID. And anybody else does not have an ID? All right, two. Why Bill? Yeah, why be able to check out is not clear because there's a missing premise. Not a very strong argument. So indeed, the unstated premise is that Bill doesn't have an ID. So with that premise, now we have a strong argument because, like what somebody said, why Bill won't be able to check out is not clear. Right, exactly, because it was missing a premise. So again, when you read scientific articles, you could say for yourself, oh no, there's something missing here. They don't collect the necessary data to prove the conclusion. And that's why we, when we write out proposals, want to make sure that well, one, we need to understand what we're trying to prove, which is constitutes your aims, and then you have to think about what kind of data do you want to collect in order to prove your hypothesis or your objectives. And if you don't collect all the necessary data, then we have a premise that's missing to provide your conclusion. So helpful rules, not only when you read conclusions, you want to develop your own conclusions, your own arguments. So in order to compute arguments, let's say you're writing a paper, well, you want to be about what's your conclusion and what are the necessary premises to support your conclusion. If you want your manuscript published, you want to make sure that you have all the necessary premises, all the necessary data. You want to unfold your ideas in a natural order. I'll go over that in the next slide. This is aspects of good writing. Identify reliable and unreliable premises. In your evaluation of an argument, and also when you try to support your arguments, are your premises reliable, or how reliable are the data? Again, I'll go back to my example. Was sample size adequate? How was it calculated? Be concrete and concise. That's an aspect of clear writing that Isabel has been talking about. And then you want to build on substance, not tone, meaning you don't want to support your arguments by emotions. Now, emotions could be helpful in providing a conclusion, and we'll go over next time about whole loaded language or language with emotions. You want to make sure that you're not using strong emotive words instead of substance. So here's an example. Well, we won't have time for that. So here's a sentence. Here's a paragraph. It's really not in a logical order. How could we make this into a logical order? So essentially, we want premise 1, premise 2, maybe there's another premise 3, and then you want your conclusion. Now, usually your conclusion is either in the beginning of the paragraph or at the end. I claim blah, blah, blah. Here are my reasons. Or here are some premises, and there I conclude. So look at this paragraph. How could we rearrange it so that it's in a logical order? And also each premise builds up the previous premise. Well, first, what's the overall conclusion here? What's the main conclusion in this paragraph?
We should eat more beans.
Okay, good. Yes, that's the conclusion. It's buried almost like in the middle of the paragraph. So what are the reasons why you should eat more beans?
Beans is a healthier diet.
Beans are what?
A healthier diet. Healthy.
Okay, right. That's one premise. So beans are healthy. Does the author give a actually? Now, that's a claim in and of itself. Beans are healthy. Does the author give a reason for thinking that beans are healthy?
Lower fat and cholesterol. The last lower fat and cholesterol.
Okay, good. Right, so actually, this serves as a premise for this claim. Is there another claim? Actually, yeah, is there another claim? Or another premise for why you should eat more beans?
Bean dishes can be very varied and exciting.
Yes, right. And what's the reason for that? Does the author give a reason?
He gives an example.
What's that?
He gives an example.
Yes,
Spicy.
right. Spicy black bean or hummus. So essentially, let me clear things up here. So this argument actually stuff we have claims. This can be exciting. Beans are healthy, and that all of that you arrive at your overall conclusion. The overall conclusion is that we should eat more beans. And the author gives two claims backed up by premises. And that makes for a strong argument. If the author just said we should eat more beans, just like what I said about the whole government, anyways. Okay, here, if the author just said we should eat more beans, beans are healthy, and they could be exciting. Now, one could say, what's the strength of that argument? Well, one could say, all right, beans are healthy. I've heard that before, common sense. Beans could be exciting. I don't know about that. Beans sounds pretty boring to me. All right, so one may not be totally convinced why you should eat more. But now, if you give more reasons for these, is that much stronger? So this is how you could diagram arguments and pick out the premises, the claims, and to do that, now you could evaluate the strength of the premises. And again, just like reading a scientific paper. Well, here's an example of scientific reasoning. Okay, and so a team of researchers wanted to study the effects of giving patients on the safety effects. All right, that's the aim. They want to aim. Well, they gave some parents information. There's no evidence that causes autism. Other parents received no information about vaccine. That's the method section. Here's the result. When compared to receive no information, parents who received information were no more likely to vaccinate children. So that's the result. And so now we have Nye and his colleagues concluded that simply providing information about vaccine safety does not increase the proportion of parents who get their children vaccinated. So you evaluate the strength of that conclusion. Well, you the method section. Strong was the research. Well, this was a controlled experiment. You may want to know whether it was randomized. More strength to the research design, and you want to know how they recruited the parents to make sure there was no selection bias. So all feeds into how strong is this conclusion. It's based on the research design, the sample size, randomization. It may also depend on how good are these researchers, though we have blinded manuscripts now, so one should not be influenced by the reputation of the researchers. So again, this is the conclusion, and your methods section actually are your premises on how you get the data and how you enter data. So this slide, I think I'll have a few more minutes and we'll finish up. So we have been thinking about how do you identify reliable and unreliable premise. Well, if a premise is a fact, then we know that's reliable. If the premise supported by appropriate testimony or appropriate sources, just like that, then it's usually reliable. Premises that are widely known to be false or easily shown to be false are unreliable. We'll go over example. Other premises are unreliable because we don't know or can't know whether they are true. To that example, a world government would be a horrible government. Well, we don't know about that. Or evaluate from common sense or existing knowledge. And so the tooth abscess. Well, it makes common sense. If you have tooth abscess, most likely need a root canal. So we're not dentists, but common sense. So we'll end with some examples of identifying reliable and unreliable premises, which is the same type of work we do when we want to identify reliable or unreliable data, right? It's the same thing. So here, what do you got this? Anybody could become a zombie, a relative, a friend, or even a neighbor. Zombies are constantly looking to eat the brains of the living. Therefore, you should always be prepared to escape or fight back a zombie attack. So what's the claim here? You should always be prepared to escape or fight back against a zombie attack.
Is this for children or what are zombies? Because
no, it's for us. Okay, it's for us. So conclusion is either the beginning or the end of the paragraph. All right. So the author is concluding you should always be prepared to escape or fight back against a zombie attack. Okay. All right. Anybody could become. Zombies are constantly looking to eat the brains of the living. Well, no. This is all false. The whole idea of a zombie. Elvis picked up on it immediately.
It's true for children.
Children. Well, yes, right. It's for children, but I'm glad you said a child might believe this. Because a child doesn't have the fund of knowledge that we have, right? Now, actually, if this was all true, this would be a strong argument. Why always be prepared to escape? Well, a zombie could be actually a close friend or a neighbor or a relative. And they're constantly looking to eat of the living. Now, if those premises were to be true, okay, then this would be a strong argument. Okay, but I don't think we need any to know that this conclusion is false. We should always be prepared to escape from zombies because they don't exist. But if you're a child and you believe in ghosts and zombies, well, this would be a very good argument. All right, let's take the next one. Artificial intelligence. This this argument is for adults, okay? All right. So artificial intelligence will soon be able to run cities or even whole continents. Intelligence has been advanced quickly in recent years. One new artificial intelligence program for zero can become an expert in complex games like chess in a matter of hours after being taught nothing more than the basic rules. If AlphaZero can master complex games, then surely it won't be long before run cities or continents. So the claim here, it's either at the beginning or the end of the argument.
The beginning.
Yes, right. So the claim is artificial intelligence will soon be able to run cities and whole continents. Okay, that's the claim. Here are the premises. Well, artificial intelligence has been advancing quickly in recent years. What's the reliability of that premise?
Is a fact.
Well, it's yeah, I think one could call that a fact. Has been advancing quickly, so one may want to know what's your definition of advancing quickly, but we know AI has been advancing quickly by interpretation of what quickly is. The next new artificial intelligence program, AlphaZero, can become an complex game in a matter of hours after being taught nothing more than the basic rules. What's the strength of that premise? Well, we may not just simply not know. You have to have this artificial intelligence AlphaZero. I've never heard of that. And it could be taught nothing more than basic rules. It could be an expert in complex games. The reliability of that is, well, I may want to Google, right, AlphaZero, find out more about it, right? You want more information. And then here, if Zero can master complex games, then surely it won't be long before it can run cities or continents. So, what's the reliability of that premise?
It's unreliable.
And why is that?
It's strange.
True?
It's strange.
It's what?
It's strange, unrealistic.
Okay,
like
wait, no, why? Why is it unreliable?
Because like the reality is like something, as you said, there is no information on how practical this can be. So it's just like a movie, one sounds movie.
Well, we're not talking about zombies again, and I don't know about movies about artificial intelligence, but here this premise. It's telling you to make a leap of faith that well, if AlphaZero can master complex games, then surely it could run cities or continents. Well, that's a leap of faith. I don't know about that reliability here. Well, mastering complex, this is common sense. You're using your common sense. Well, complex games is one thing. Running cities and continents, that's a whole different ballgame. So, I think we could say, well, this is not a very strong argument because of the premises. Well, it may not be weak, I think it tends to be more weak than strong. And we evaluated the premises. I think I have one more. So this is the last one. You should be a vegetarian. Every time you eat meat, your meal is the result of the suffering and death of an animal. Besides to put a piece of that animal bodies in your mouth and chew it. There's plenty of great vegetarian food, including tasty meat alternatives. Also, vegetarianism is healthier than eating meat. One more reason to be a vegetarian is that you would be joining the company of a long incredible people: Leonardo da Vinci, Isaac Newton, Thomas Edison, Paul McCartney, and Tobey Maguire. Okay, so the conclusion is obvious. You should be a vegetarian. Okay, and so let's look at the reasons. Every time you eat, your meal is as a result of the suffering and death of the animal. How true is that?
Death is sure, but suffering.
True.
Okay, yeah, the suffering, maybe yes, not, but surely the animal has to die, right? Okay, so that's pretty true, right? Besides, it's disgusting to put a piece of that animal body in and chew it. How true is that? It's more of an opinion than anything else, right? Might be disgusting, but I don't know. You go to a steakhouse, I don't see a lot of people disgusted when you chew the meat, right? So that's not too viable. There's plenty of great vegetarian food, including tasty meat alternatives. Also, vegetarianism is healthy in eating meat. So what's the reliability of all these premises? Is there plenty of great vegetarian food, including tasty meat alternatives?
It's a personal opinion.
Okay, but right, it's a personal opinion, but are there a lot of good vegetarian food? Whether you eat meat or not, for common sense, well, there is a lot of alternatives, and there are tasty alternatives. Mushrooms is considered a meat alternative because it has the same chemical. It has the same chemical as in meat that gives you that meat flavor. Now, I happen to know that from my previous readings. So from my comments or my fund of knowledge, there is tasty meat alternatives. What about this? Vegetarian is healthier than eating meat. What's the reliability of that from?
This is not true.
It's not true?
No, because there is many vitamins that
you must like to eat a lot of meat.
I mean, there is a lot of vitamins that we can't have from vegetarian food. That doesn't exist in vegetarian food. So people.
Right, that's a good point. However, this would be made more stronger. Now, actually, you could say this is plain, and you like to have some premises. Show me the data. And I would lead you to papers for the data if you don't believe that. And so actually, this premise here could be stronger if there's data given, or it could be based on common sense that from not common sense, but papers I've previously read, those vegetarian diet is healthier than eating meat. Now, one last premise. Here's one more reason. You're joining a company of a long list of incredible people. So what's the reliability of that premise? In order to convince you why you should be a vegetarian. Is it very reliable? Not reliable?
Unreliable.
Why do you say that?
How about others? Maybe Einstein is not vegetarian. Others are not vegetarian, but they are famous and well-known, incredible people.
Yeah, well, they're incredible people. That's okay. Now, however, we don't know if all these people were vegetarians, right? Now, I happen to know that Paul McCartney is a vegetarian, but I don't know about Thomas Edison, Isaac Newton. Is there evidence for that? Well, I know Isaac Newton ate apples, but other than that, I don't know if he ate meat or not. But importantly, are these people's sources of authority on vegetarian food? Let's say they all eat the food. Whoops. Oh. Let's say they all eat, let's say they are all vegetarians. Well, is that a reason to be a vegetarian? Now, gave me a list of famous nutritionists. I'm not sure. But if you gave me sources of authority, then I may say reliable. So, at the end of the day, are you convinced that you should be a vegetarian? Is this a weak argument, moderate, or a strong argument why you should be a vegetarian? Many people on this call who are not previously vegetarians are convinced now you should be a vegetarian.
No.
No what?
I'm not convinced because it's more about being star.
All right, good. I agree with that. Okay. As much as I would like to see everyone be a vegetarian, this needs more convincing. I'm going to reject this manuscript for publication. Okay. Or better yet, give advice on how to make this paper stronger. Okay. So that again is why we start critical thinking. This is well, I won't go over that. We did over time, but we will spend the next sessions on actually how to further evaluate the strength of arguments, and more importantly, how do we know what we call there is a logical fallacy in the argument? We need to be able not to evaluate the strength of the argument, but we need to see the aspects of an argument that is fallacious. It's false. It's not logical. Okay. And that's our agenda for the next few weeks. And next time we'll look at how people use emotions to try to convince you of their arguments. All right. Any final thoughts? All right. Some people were saying weak argument. I guess that's in reference to being a vegetarian.
Yes.
Mm.
Okay. All right. Any thoughts? I'll have this session. Well, it is being recorded, and I'll post that as well. Okay. All right. So next week, Mayumi, will you be ready to present?
I'll try.
Okay, give it the old try. Listen, we're not looking for papers here. The reason to present is to get our input. Okay. Yeah, we want to make your paper better. That's why we present. This is not like presenting. Well, when you present a you want feedback, and you want feedback as well. But we all know it's not a finished. All right, so
Okay.
it's just a matter of presenting what you have, and it's a lot of good people on the call, and we'll do our best to help. That's the whole purpose of this whole program. Okay. All right. Okay, good. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your attention, and we'll see you next week. Okay. All right. Very good. Okay. All right. Everybody have a good day.
Yeah, bye-bye.